Hi, I'm Yağmur, and I'm here to represent Radical Girls, which is the young women's movement of the European Network of Migrant Women. And I would like to start immediately with a very simple question. What is a woman? And, Janice Raymond says that it's not so much about answering the question, but asking it, because that's when you really get to decide what the narrative is. And that question is both wrong and revealing. It's wrong because what is used to refer to objects. And it's revealing because it gives away the status we have in the society, which is an object. So I would like to start with some elements of popular culture that really encapsulate this concept. And I will start with the great El Duderino, the dude, the Big Lebowski. I hope you can see my screen. So in this scene, the Big Lebowski is talking about a pimp, and he says, Mr. Treehorn treats objects like woman, man. And he's right, because if women are objects, then objects can be women. So when we're talking about masturbatory robots, which is a term that you have coined, Kathleen, and I will come back to it later, there's often the film The Stepford Wives that's cited, which is very correct. And you must watch it, you must read it. It's an excellent analysis of, how patriarchy functions. And the film is constructed so well, and that's something that the media doesn't mention when talking about The Stepford Wives. The film begins with a man carrying a mannequin of a naked, representing a woman. And Joanna Ebbard, the main character, takes a photograph of this, and a few minutes later, her son tells his dad, Daddy, I saw a man carrying a naked woman. He doesn't make the distinction between an object reproducing a woman and a woman. And we have to understand that that is the situation we are in now. So I will show you other images. On the left, we have images from an Italian TV show, and we also have another reference to, woman as dead meat, because the man is touching the Parma ham the same way he is touching the woman, as something dead, as dead flesh. And on the right, we have a man producing robots that will be used for men to masturbate inside. And then there is another image that I would like to show. On the left, we have women from the Islamist congregation of Adnan Oktar, who are always had, heavy plastic surgery, which also begs the question of, if we say we have to accept, I don't know, veiling because it's religious, do we also have to accept plastic surgery? There's also reflection on religion to do there. And on the right, you have dolls waiting for some punters inside a brothel. And, I will stop sharing the screen if I can now. And, if we ask the question of what is a woman, the next question is kind of, if we follow this logic, is what is a woman for? And this is where men in robotics have come up with an answer. So when they create those robots, we see that it's very difficult for us humans to escape the two-sexed reality we live in. So we have androids, and now it's how do you call that, software system, a development system, right? Like we think about Google, now we think of Android. But I was looking at the definition of it, and a basic definition that comes up is a human-like robot. But again, this is wrong, because andro is male or men. So we have also, or rather it's again telling, because we have incorporated that what looking like a human is looking like a man. And then we have gynoids, so woman-shaped robots. And what do? They are there to sexually service men. So here we have our first answer. What is a woman for? To sexually service men. And now I will look into the links between prostitution and robots. So I've mentioned the brothels, that's been mentioned also by others before me. And the very first thing that links those two is the male demand. And now here there is no talk about the women's choice, there is no talk about empowerment, because the emperor is naked. The case of Douglas Hines is very important, because when he was creating True Companion, he wanted to create a robot to help his sick father. But he saw that the money was not in there. Men were demanding to use robots to masturbate inside of them. And it's the same thing with Matt McMullen from Real Dolls. He was just drawing hyper-realistic, figures. And then men kept asking him, can you produce them in 3D? Can we masturbate inside of this? And that's how he got into the business. So we have a situation where men are asking for it, men are supplying it, because let's not confuse ourselves when we're talking about demand for prostitution. The supply is not made by women, but by other men, the pimps, and men are buying it, and this demand is only increasing. Then there are also much more, in the production aspect, the links are much clearer, right? So we have the brothels, and it's, one part you have women, the other you have robots. So it's even blurring even more this distinction between object and woman. The robots are actually molded from women in the industry of prostitution. So they will pay a minimal amount to a woman who is in stripping to have a lifelong mold of herself to be used by other men. Pornography is made out of those robots. And obviously those robots reply to very pornographic imagery, right? And in this pornographic imagery, we also see the paradox of prostitution, because men seek women in prostitution because they know that they do not want to be with them. I mean, they have to pay for them. I don't see any bigger proof than that the woman doesn't want to be with the man at that moment. And at the same time, they want the woman to pretend they like it. This is exactly the attitude we have when we're watching a film. We don't want poor acting. We want to believe in this illusion that she wants it. And we have a similar mechanism with those robots where they are both hyper-realistic, so they mimic the feeling of skin, of hair, and at the same time, they are clearly false because the proportions between body parts are impossible, humanly impossible. Beyond that, we also have the justifications between prostitution and robots that clearly overlap. So we have the same attitude towards men, where we see them as victims somehow. Poor, lonely men. I mean, we need to find something for them, right? And nobody cares if women are lonely or if, we could have sexual frustrations from all the violence we've experienced, right? It's only about us feeling empathy towards men that don't feel empathy towards women. And just like in, male punters, that's not even the case, because a lot of the time they are in a relationship with women. So that's a false excuse. And also our attitude that we have towards those men. I mean, it's only because we have, overlapped women and objects so much. And we know that men have sex with women as if we were objects, especially in prostitution, where there's really the idea of buying and using and making a revenue out of it. So we're really close to the Roman law of private property, right? It's only because we live in a system like this that we are not shocked by a 40-year-old man pretending that it's like as if I saw a 40-year-old man pretending his stuffed animal was real. That's very disturbing. And we think that men can have sex with objects because we are so used to sex not implying the mutuality it should have, when really it's masturbation this man is doing, right? This man, you cannot have sex with an object. And then in the justification, the really important one, I mean, Caitlin, you've talked a lot about it, is that they are not real women. So I would like to make one first parenthesis on this thing of real woman, because that's a big lie. There is no such thing as real woman and false woman. I struggle today finding the word woman on its own without being qualified by an adjective or being preceded by a prefix. But woman is a standalone word. And even when you say real woman or false woman, you're not defining me woman, right? So this is a lie. There are women and there are men. End of the story. So there is no lie, truth, or whatever. I mean, real or false, sorry. And this thing of they are not real women is exactly the same distinction that's made with women in prostitution. And it's made by the male buyers themselves. They are quote unquote prostitutes. They are not normal women. And this is the attitude we have, where we think that somehow some women could not just, choose, but also enjoy having 10 men a day inside a German brothel with the language they don't even speak, right? Because we know they could come from Eastern Europe, and enjoy having 10 unknown men denying her sexual will and her sexual desire. And how did we get to this point? So a key aspect of the dehumanization of women in prostitution comes from the distinction of body-mind distinction. So I don't often hear when we're talking about other political battles of the body. When we're talking about workers' rights, we're not so much talking about workers' bodily autonomy or, but they also use their bodies, right? So the body only makes its entrance when we're talking about women. And we have, and I don't know anyone better than the Swedish feminist Kajsa Ekman, who wrote Being and Being Bought, that explains this distinction that's going on. So we have this idea that men could buy women's bodies without buying their minds. That the two are so distinct that women could sell their vaginas without selling themselves. And I cannot see of a better image than this one, and I will share it with you. Sorry, I was also checking the time. So I will go into play mode, and it's this one.
You've got a couple more minutes.
Okay, and then I'm almost done anyway. So, they could have done it in any other way. They could have perhaps done the articulation differently, but here we have the body, the head split from the body. And this is our whole attitude towards the men. We're still judging the recipients of the violence. We're saying it's an object, we're saying it's a woman in prostitution, so it's not really a harm. And it's time we looked at men's actions and men's will to do those things. And I'm over here. Thank you.